could still hear the echo of the storyteller's voice in her mind, although she couldn't make out the words. It had been so vivid, she felt like she'd been standing in the crowd, ears straining to hear what he would say. Whatever it had been, she knew it was important. Such a strange dream. Her eyes drifted closed, and she snuggled back into the covers. Maybe if she fell asleep again, she would get to hear the story. At least it was a nice change from the other dreams she'd been having lately. Chapter 1. Linda Hartman stood by the bay window next to the front door of the family mansion and stared at the pouring rain. Her heartbeat quickened. At any moment Falk would arrive, and they would be together again. They hadn't seen much of each other since he'd left, first to go to a private boarding high school and then to college, about 3 years total. The time apart had been tough on them both. Emails, Skype, and school breaks hadn't been enough to satisfy her. Their bond remained intact. She'd stood in this exact spot at 10 years old, watching her father walk up the drive with a young boy in tow. Then his hair had been curly and blonde as the down of a duckling. His blue eyes had reminded her of a breathtaking, translucent frozen lake she'd seen with her father once in Canada. "I'm Falk," he'd said, shaking her hand in a serious, grown-up way. Even though he seemed confident, she'd detected a tension around his forehead and mouth. When their hands met, a strange fluttering sensation had moved within her. "I'm Linda." She'd known right away he was special. Her father, John Hartman, had found Falk while supervising a logging crew. Falk had run away from an orphanage and gotten lost in the company forest lands. He'd promised her father he would work for him until the day he died and be his most loyal employee, if he would only not take him back. The soft-hearted man had melted under Falk's pleading and brought him home. Many years later, he'd told Linda how they talked on the way to the house, how he'd immediately liked the boy. He'd confessed to always wanting a son, and thinking it would be good for Linda to have a sibling. Dad had moved forward with the adoption paperwork right away. In fact, he'd pulled every string necessary so Falk hadn't had to spend even one more night back at the orphanage, which turned out not to be so difficult in a small town like Constance, where everyone knew and respected him. Falk's full name was James Faulkner. Falk suited him better. Linda shifted her feet where she stood and cocked her head. She pushed the edge of the thin white privacy curtain to the side, as if moving 1 inch of fabric from the edge of my sight would help me see better through the rain and trees. But she couldn't help herself. Was that a car she heard? No, just the roar of a truck passing from the main road. The nonstop pelt of the rain made it difficult to pick out specific engine sounds. Normally she didn't mind the rain, the comfy sound of home, of Seattle, but today she wished it would stop so she could hear a car approaching. She sighed, then jumped as someone spoke. "Linda, dear, why don't you come and sit in the kitchen and have some coffee with me? Waiting by the window won't make him arrive any sooner." Sarah, their old housekeeper and distant relative, stood in the doorway. Her graying blonde hair was piled on her head in a dignified manner, and she wore one of her many neat black dresses. "It's been so long! I can't wait to see him," Linda said. 11 months had flown by since she'd last seen Falk on Thanksgiving. Flown was the wrong word for it, though. She had felt every single day of their separation. Maybe the term slipping away suited her feelings better. Whatever the right term was, the lack of contact caused a persistent ache in the back of her throat and heart. Did Falk feel the same way? Or had his feelings changed? Did she even know him anymore? "I know. We've all missed him." Sarah patted her shoulder. Linda turned from the window and met the housekeeper's brown eyes, set within folds of skin wrinkled from years of smiling. Gentle understanding glowed there. "I'd better go back upstairs and sit with Dad. Promise you'll call me the second you hear Falk's car?" "Of course." Sarah nodded and reached out to squeeze one of her hands. Linda went up the grand curving staircase to the second level and headed down the east wing of the house to her father's suites. The grand old mansion they lived in had been in the family for generations.